So let's get to this. Speaking of people who I wish were deplatformed, I know that's wrong of me, and it's completely unclassically liberal. But budding friendship between Tucker Carlson and Dave Rubin, the classical liberals over at Fox. Folks, it's that time again when Republicans have suffered political loss, and they turn to the old trusty chestnut around this time of year, the war on Christmas. And who better to talk about the war on Christmas than these two heartland fellows who, the heir to the Swanson fortune, Tucker Carlson, and the Hollywood elite, Dave Rubin, living in Hollywood, maybe not elite, but definitely Hollywood Dave Rubin.
He probably has never lived anywhere else besides California and New York.
The Hollywood
literally.
mediocre.
Well, and he's one of these performers. But here he is, the Hollywood elite, talking about how Christmas is ruined for everybody, particularly this Jewish guy.
Dave Rubin hosts the Rubin Report on YouTube. And he's a very wise man and joins us. So Dave, as I'm watching that, all of a sudden I had this kind of panic feeling and thinking, maybe I fell for an elaborate, ironic prank from HuffPo, and then I realized no, because they don't have a sense of humor. I mean, but reassure me, this is real, right?
Tucker, very quickly on the last segment, I swear to you, I thought you were the
Now, pause it. We should tell you what they're talking about. They're talking about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer as a marginalized character. I don't know if it's tongue-in-cheek. It may or may not be. It harkens back to the multitude of reassessments done by right-wingers of popular cartoons, things like the American Family Research Council saying that A Shark's Tale was, in fact, a gay promotion vehicle. In fact, I called them, and we will dig up that call at one point. But here it is. They're upset about how Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is being reinterpreted.
I am shocked, and I'm gonna, I don't get paid for these appearances, but I am going to mail you a check for somewhere between $15 and $20. Okay, that aside,
I appreciate
yes,
that, Dave.
this is, yeah, you got it, my friend. Listen, these puff piece of Huffington Post. I mean, look, these pieces that these authors, whatever they are, journalists that they write, these are not pieces of journalism. It's so much
Pause
easier
it for 1 second. What was going on? Was the cameraman messing with Dave Rubin there?
The camera is never, throughout this entire segment, never quite comfortable resting on Dave Rubin.
It is
like a
very, very funny, but he's just bouncing up and down. But go ahead.
These puff piece of Huffington Post. I mean, look, these pieces that these authors, whatever they are, journalists that they write, these are not pieces of journalism. It's so much easier to destroy than to create. If you're watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and think it's about racism and misogyny and the patriarchy and the rest of it, well, you can find that stuff everywhere. If you look back at anything, and that's what people really need to understand when these pieces come out, and then you start looking at something that you used to love or that used to have a wonderful message about the holiday and giving and being accepted and all of those things, that they're trying to take that away from you. And it's not like they stop with one thing, right? They find something, they kind of destroy that, and they'll move on to everything else that we love. So, eventually they'll move on to sitcoms that we love, whether it's Seinfeld for,
exactly.
doing something they've done, or Friends or whatever else it is. They'll go for cartoons. They've gone for Bugs Bunny. I mean, they will literally go for a sunset. Think of whoever's watching this right now, think of something you love that brings you a sense of peace and decency, and they will somehow link it to the patriarchy and the rest of their politically correct nonsense. And we need to realize that, as I said earlier, it's easier to destrow than create.
Well,
and
that's
what
the
they're just
smartest.
going to keep doing. And I think what we have to do
Now
is
pause it for 1 second. All right. So what they're talking about is HuffPost ran a piece. People find some disturbing details in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And someone wrote, every year the elf throws the bird out of the sleigh without an umbrella, even though the bird said it can't fly. Every damn year, someone complained. Somebody else said, one of the great mysteries of modern times, what's wrong with the dolly on the island of misfit toys? Why is she a misfit? I mean, there are other ones. Maybe there's more serious stuff that they're talking about.
Jamie can probably speak to this better than I can, but what economic system incentivizes these sorts of, without even commenting on the validity of this article or whatever, what economic system incentivizes this sort of blogosphere like environment, right? What pitches are accepted? Like, of course, it's...
No, these are just jokes.
Oh,
these are all jokes.
Even if they were going to seriously critique it, though, right? Like,
well, listen. I'll tell you something. First off, the ones on the HuffPost from 2 days ago, they're jokes. Now maybe there's someone that there's something else, but they're mostly jokes as far as I can tell. Like, but.
A little bit of self-satire, perhaps?
Well,
a little self-consciousness on the part of liberals?
Well, I don't know, but I'll tell you something. If anybody has ever watched with any serious look at the Nutcracker, you will see a creepy-ass tale of pedophilia. I'm sorry. Now, a lot of you people have no idea what I'm talking about because you've never watched it. I have watched about 12 different versions of the Nutcracker. And I think it was the Seattle one, which almost like openly acknowledges it. You have a creepy old uncle who comes in and gives the young girl a nutcracker and then comes in the middle of the night and takes her to Candyland. Okay? It's a very creepy story. So the idea that you cannot revisit old classics and reassess what's going on. Now, in some of the updated versions of the Nutcracker, they take a lot of that element out. They send him with a kid. The prince is not like they send it, there's another kid, like the assistant instead of like the uncle. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's done to make it less creepy. But there are versions out there where it becomes very explicit. This is super creepy.
We should be forced to do it exactly how it originally was.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
End of time.
And if you read any of the originals of the fairy tales that we tell our kids, they're creepy. And if you have even slight sensitivity to much of the stories that are told that are considered girls' stories, young girls, right? Like all the princess ones. That up until very recently, when you start getting things like Frozen or whatnot, these stories all have the same basic lesson. Unless you land the really, the prince in shining armor, you are, in some cases, literally dead, or your life is going to suck. And you get more sensitive to that when you have a daughter and you're starting to look at these things and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe what the message is to this. So in HuffPost, they're going through this and they're pointing out some of this stuff. Perfectly legitimate exercise. And the idea that they're going to come back and reinterpret everything for us.
Well, it seems like what they're getting mad about is not even a reinterpretation. Like the idea.
I think HuffPo may have made a video where they go through the whole thing and they see the various different things that are sort of a little bit grotesque.
But like the idea that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is about how you shouldn't treat people differently because they look different from you. That's not a stretch. That's like literally the message contained in the story.
Well, there's a message contained in the story, of course, but you have to be really successful and lucky. And your difference has to actually help productivity and the group dynamic. If it doesn't, of course, you're still completely ostracized, particularly if someone doesn't come down and pluck you out and save you.
Yeah,
it's a pretty crap-ass message to send to kids if you were concerned about that. But the idea that this somehow ruins things for us. Like we can, who knows what's next? We have to reinterpret Seinfeld? Oh my gosh.
What next?
What are we going to do? Look back on slavery and think it was wrong? Continue.
And we just need to realize that, as I said earlier, it's easier to destroy than create.
Well,
and
that's
what
the
they're
smartest.
just going to keep doing. And I think what we have to do is create.
That's such a smart point.
Pause it.
What
I
are
don't know
we-
if you've ever seen the creation of Dave Rubin's comedy, but if that is just him trying to make the point that it's super difficult to create those things.
Anyone gay in
But-
the audience?
First off, the
Creation.
reinterpretation of existing work. I don't want to call Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer art, but the reinterpretation of existing work is in fact a massive portion of all creativity that has existed.
These guys don't even like Pulp Fiction?
Right.
Come on.
Continue.
What are we creating? What is being created in this moment of destruction right now? Do you make me feel
Well,
better?
that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm worried about, because there is some legitimacy that some of the things happening in the country and in the world should be destroyed at some
Yes.
level. Look, we've got major problems in academia. We've got major
Right, we want some
problems in
change.
the
I
media.
agree.
Now, does he mean the George Mason economics department? Is that the
Right.
problem in academia that he's concerned with?
No. Of course, we know what the problem at academia is, that people are trying to destroy the hegemony of the patriarchy, or of misogyny, or of everything except for a gay hatred. The destruction of anti-gay sentiment and homophobia, I think Dave would probably be okay with. I think the destruction of the age-old tradition that I'm sure Tucker Carlson was bemoaning being destroyed, of marriage between only a man and a woman, I don't think Dave has a problem with that one. It's just the other ones that don't implicate him which are problematic to have destroyed, right?